Alright, war is oftentimes looked at as a patriotic necessity, but in actuality it's pretty ugly. So I decided to look at the untold side of war, focusing on the insanity of war, the inhumanness, the lack of compassion, and the utter disregard for the value of life that comes with war. So to do this, I looked at, my first novel was Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, which is a satirical look at the bureaucracy of war. In it, the main character, Yossarian, is a pilot in World War II, and he's in this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation where the outside world thinks of him as crazy, but he's really the only rational one in the irrational war that he's fighting. And the second book that I looked at was Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, which the main character is Billy Pilgrim, and he's a prisoner of war in World War II, and he survives the firebombing at Dresden. And after this, he kind of goes crazy and thinks that he's unstuck in time and is time traveling, and it's really just his way of coping with the surreal events that he's been subject to. So both of these novels take place in World War II, and they have a lot of similarities, but the way that the main characters deal with death is very different. So Yossarian, on one hand, has seen all of his friends die, and he's really afraid of death, where Billy Pilgrim has kind of become numb to death, and he's come to terms with the fact that everybody's going to die eventually. So after reading my books, I looked at the article titled The Insanity of War, which was written in 1935. So this is after World War I, which is the Great War, and before World War II. And it focused on how psychological changes can play a very important part in the complex, complicated problem of war. And then I also looked at this picture, which is titled Napalm Girl, and it was taken by Nick Ut in the Vietnam War in 1972. And I thought it was a very powerful image that depicted a girl after she's been badly burned by napalm, and it just showed the brutality of war and how it can affect women and children alike. And then this picture was taken in Syria, in Aleppo, Syria in 2016, and it's of a young boy named Omran Daknesh. And this is 44 years after Vietnam, but the way that the children are portrayed are very similar. They're both still affected by the brutality of war. So in all of these sources, war is not portrayed as valiant and patriotic, but mad and grossly inhuman. And I thought it was interesting that across multiple mediums, from fiction to reality and across time periods, war is seen as insane. And in my own life, I've always looked at compromise and diplomatic resolution instead of fighting. And I think that war is always unneeded. And so these sources that I looked at not only reiterated my negative view of war, but strengthened it. And so all in all, I learned that the insanity of war doesn't really change. The methods of, we're still fighting wars, as you can see, and people are still dying, but the methods of war change, but the way that it affects people doesn't. And peace is still a distant ideal.